check out this hand history. I think his first mistake. This is just a shove. You don't want to raise fold. You don't really want to raise call. It's just best to shove all in. And now, as played, when the turn comes a club, I think you're not gonna get him to fold. You know, you're not really getting value from worse. Like if he has 5-4 or Jack-5 suited or a 2 pair, he might have raised on the flop. And the deuce doesn't really give him too many hands, so I think he just has a flush a lot of the time. And yeah, so he does have a flush. I thought he maybe had it on the turn, but as played, when he leads out river, you do have a straight, but I don't think he ever bluffs here with worse, so I would fold. But I think the first mistake is just not going all in pre-flop. I'll try to show you an example of a range. One sec. So these are hands that you want to just shove with a little bit of ICM pressure, 83% of the field left from the cutoff with 10 big blinds. 11 is close enough. So all the low pairs. In the smaller stakes games where people don't re-raise all in, when you raise and they re-raise with a tighter range, then you have to call off with a tighter range. So if a pair of 10s is a profitable shove, and when they re-raise, they're re-raising all in pretty tight, you know, in some situations, 10s becomes a fold. This is with ICM ranges. Let's look at Chippy V ranges. Oh, they have 11 big blinds. Okay, perfect. Oh, this is good. One more, that's it. 40 big blinds, pre-flop strategies. 30 big blinds, 25 big blinds, pre-flop strategies. Alright, I'm still playing a tournament here. So these don't have. You kind of see cut off. You don't even open threes. When you do, you're like shove. I don't see like a pre-flop strategy. It just shows versus races in versus 3-bet jam. Oh, here we go. Maybe this is it. So this is 15 big blinds. What you do. Now let's look at. I don't think this is the right one. Alright, yeah. So cut off 11 big blinds, Chippy V. You want to shove pretty wide. Okay, I don't really understand this shit, sorry. Back that okay, it's 13 big blinds is close to 7. Anyways, any chart. Your strongest hands, you want to min raise. This is limping, but so just to speed that up, you want to just print off a chart for this. Okay, so just get used to this. So these are folds. Next hand. It's just a fold. And big blind C. How you play. I'll bet turn. You have a good hand. You have an open-ended straight draw with a medium flush draw. If you hit a 5, a 9, you're good most likely. And a low board like this isn't going to hit that range too much. as limpers. They either have a pair, which made a set here, or they could have some weak ace X that has like a ace6, ace8, but a lot of the hands are over like Broadway cards. So I would bluff there at some point. Threes, I would fold. It's not really that profitable to shove. It's a decent shove, but it's never a min raise. So you just gotta. It's pre-flop stuff's an easy fix. You just. So you see here for 13 big blinds, it's never an open raise in early position, middle position. Low jack, you start to shove it though. Which position are you in? Button, cutoff, hijack, low jack. You're in early position. Yeah, it's just a fold. Back-to-back hands. So this hand is much more of a raise than threes. Button, cutoff, hijack, low jack. If you look at low jack here, threes is played 72% of the time, ace nine off is played all the time. This strategy includes limps, which is, I don't really like it too much. I think it's just simple to do. You could also look on here, here's some free GTO ranges for Chippy V strategy. GTO Wizard. So you go here, you'd switch to MTT, and you had about, it's closest to 14 big blinds from the low jack, right? Button, cutoff, hijack, low jack, yeah. So ace nine off, and we can change it to no limps. Ace nine off is a pure raise, and threes isn't a raise. So what I recommend you do is just work on some charts. Write out some charts. Print them off and then refer to them when you're reviewing. Or just check, you can check here. But example of how I write charts in my range here, I'll just show you. So if you just wanted to simplify it, you could say shove all these hands. You just write it out. Just round it up. And then for your min raising, you go ace four suited. You could go something like this. When you put ace 4-9, you know it's ace 4 suited plus ace 9 off plus king 8 suited, king 8-10, queen 8-10. You can write some kind of short thing like this and then print it off, study it. And anyway, this is old, I think you said, so you might be playing a little different now. Yeah, this is good jam, good ISO. I fold there too. It's a fold, good job. Two folds, I think you're in big blind now. No, it's just a fold. This is a hand you just want to go all in. You don't want to min raise. So what do you have? Button, cutoff, hijack, low jack. If you go here to low jack, 9 big blinds, no limps. You see it's just a pure shove. It's hard to memorize all these, but you get used to it as you study it and review more. just always try to think about what the worst hand you have in your range is. So ace 5 off, ace 2 suited, 2s, suited 9x, all the suited 9x, including 9-8 suited, or up to 9-8 suited, and then king jack off, broadways, queen jack off, broadways. You kind of just go over it. Over and over again, and eventually memorize it. I think this, depending how the players are playing, it's not a bad spot to shove or min raise. It might be a bit looser than Nash, but I usually don't. You can play a bit looser than Nash or GTO from late position, especially if there's players that are pretty tight. So if you go here, cut off, let's go no limps. Oh, so it's pretty loose. But if you raise, these guys are supposed to be going all in pretty wide with any suited ace, bunch of ace off, ace x offsuits, a bunch of these hands, sevens. If they go in a little bit tighter than that, then you can loosen it up quite a bit. And look at these stats. This guy seems pretty tight. Whatever. Fold's fine. Fold's good. They're not too tight. One guy's really shallow. So it's a fold. So folds. This is an all in. Not after he shoves, so you gotta fold now. I think I might go like I might go ace queen or better and nines or better, especially the softer tournaments. It might be okay, like let me see if I can find something. %80 of the field left. Let's look at both 15 big blinds and 10 big blinds. Barney cut off, hijack, low jack. So they shouldn't have too many jams. Versus the hijack jam, ace jack offsuits. Kind of need a bottom range, ace and offsuits in there a bit too. Let's see versus 10 big blind jam. So ace jack off is always a call. Yeah. It's kind of in between the 10 to 15. I personally just pass here. I go ace queen or better. Eights, nines are better. Once you study over and over quite a bit, get used to seeing like what's the equivalent to ace jack off, so ace 10 suited, ace 10 jack, ace 10 suited are pretty similar in strength. King queen suited's up there, and sevens also. So you know roughly if you have a range where ace jack off is at the bottom of the range, sevens is usually in there. If it's ace queen, it's kind of eights and nines. Ace jack suited, ace 10 suited still does really well actually. It does. That's good equity. You kind of get an idea for similar strength hands for different categories. So we had ace jack suited. I don't think people shove too many worse aces there. I don't think they shove ace 10 offsuit too often. They might shove ace 10 suited, ace 9 suited, a couple suited aces. But a lot of time it's ace queen, ace king, and then some pairs. Nines, tens, jacks. Oh, you should definitely call here. The limper is a pretty weak player, very passive. So you can kind of just ignore his limp. And when you go back here, oh, that's a better chart. 17 big blinds. I bet you it's more of a shove than a fold. But I would just call. You see, Jack 8 suited sometimes is a shove, or a 3-bet bluff, not a shove, sorry. Like 9 8 suited, 10 suited, 10 9 suited, sometimes these hands are shoves. So when the button steals, even if they don't steal too light, like this, in the low stakes they might not be raising. What is it? 25% of hands going on like that. Oh, there you go. If I take away the limps, then Jack 9 suited is more of a shove than a fold, like I was saying, I guess. But it's never a fold. Sometimes you raise non-all in, sometimes you call, sometimes you shove all in. That's way too tight. I wonder what the date of how long ago this hand history is from. I think it'll say on here. Date. Oh, so it's from a while ago, 2.5 years ago. Alright, so it must have been pretty new. But move you out of the micros fast, it didn't take too much. This is a raise. So basically, all suited aces, or most suited aces, you can just simplify it to all suited aces are good raises in almost all situations. So ace 2 suited, ace 2, ace 3 suited from early position is a fold, but you could just simplify and say all suited aces, because it doesn't make that much of a difference. But ace 7 suited for sure. It's definitely raise, call. All folds, easy folds. This is probably going to be a shove. I would shove, but I think the way you play, you probably limp or make it very small. I guess it's okay. If he had a club, I would call here versus a small bet with the backdoor flush draw. Yeah, fold is best. Well, I'll play this hand. I know it's not the greatest, but I would isolate these guys because they're going to call a lot and then fold to the flop bets. Okay, this guy's almost all in, so you could check here, kind of trap. You could bet like a quarter of the pot, 4 big blinds, just to make it look like you have some chance of, like, some chance you might fold. Shoving's okay too. Oh yeah, it's aces as well. So, yeah, from the cutoff it's a little different. You don't want to raise as much, but I might still raise versus a very weak player, very passive player. And the small sample is a 4 to 4 fold to c-bet, but you might not be using a HUD. So it's hard to notice that. Yeah, there, nothing much you could do. A good 3-bet bluff hand, maybe from late position. Let's actually check that out. Sometimes a 3-bet bluff ace 10 off from late position. So we put it, say it's 40 big blinds. I don't think they have an option for 45. With limps, I wish we could take that off. But big on raises. I want to see what position you start to 3-bet bluff, ace 10 off. Not from the low jack. A little bit from the high jack, which is not where you are. So, late position you can start the 3-bet bluff it. Button, you can call it sometimes through bluff, sometimes same with the small blind. Very similar. And the big blind, probably, yeah, do the same thing. So, generally, what you want to do with your 3-bet bluffs is think about what hands are good enough to call here. So from the earliest position, you can call ace queen suited, ace jack suited, ace king off. Sometimes you can call king queen suited, sometimes you can call ace queen off. Sometimes, and then suited broadways they play well, and the pairs they play well, easy to play. Sometimes you call them, but ace jack off isn't good enough to call. It's, if you get squeezed on, you can't defend your calling range enough. So you turn ace jack off into a bluff. The hand's just outside your kind of calling range. That's how I think about it. From like the button to middle position or early position. I think, well, what hands are good enough to call? And I study those hands, and then once I know my hands outside that range, I think about maybe I could turn into a bluff. I think you can shove here. In these games, low stakes, I'll go all in here. I think that people aren't going to call enough, and it's probably actually just a GTO shove. For 9 big blinds, you just change it to no limps. So it's a pure all in. And 7-3 suited you can turn into a min raise kind of bluff. To balance out these stronger hands that don't want to shove. But yeah, definitely it's easy to fix with some charts. I think at this point I'll probably just shove. But you basically shoved. It's kind of crazy. Ah, 20 big blinds. Yeah, I think it's just a fold, but you can see what the worst hand you call with here is. It's worth checking, so cut off raises. What hands can you call? Actually, you can't call 7-6 suited sometimes. It's a fold sometimes, so I thought maybe you'd have to be deeper stacked. What was 17 bigs? Even at 17 bigs you can call sometimes. So it's at 14 big blinds where you stop calling at all. Alright, that's good to know. Okay. Yeah, it's a tough spot. I think you could kind of, I might call there. I know it sounds crazy. People probably jam a bit too loose. I mean, sorry, a bit too tight. But the way I kind of see it is, the person who limped is dead money in the pot. It's just extra money in the pot. So your odds here are, you need about 42% equity. If you assume that he's going to fold too. You're calling 11.7, twin 30. About 30. Oh, so you need 30% equity. think that this hand should have enough. Let's check out some GTO ranges here. So cut off, all in, big blind. Queen nine suited is a fold. So yeah, you know. It can't be that bad if it's a fold. Yeah, it's a little loose. I guess the call. I'm just thinking that yes, probably a weak hand. Sometimes you could try, but most of the time it's just a weak hand, and you get that extra equity. All right. Oh, so this is just insane. Threes, yeah, you gotta, I know it might be a bounty, but you gotta be pretty careful. Threes is not a good hand, really. Oh, I don't think this is a bounty. So, yeah, this is just a bit crazy. It's way too loose. In early position on shallow stacks, you don't raise low pairs at all. So when someone goes all in, this guy isolates. It's a pretty tight player. His range is going to be pretty tight. It's probably as tight as this. So threes is just not doing well. There's a lot of overpairs and overcards. But even if, threes is just nowhere near good enough. Even from late position, it's not an all-in, it's more of a call. This is not good enough to go all in. Yeah, but you hit it, so. Sometimes it's always bad, so it's almost bad to get kind of lucky when you make a mistake. You kind of want to be punished when you make a mistake, so you learn better. I have a spot here. This guy's pretty loose. I think that this is just a jam. I'll jam ace king. More so offsuit hands. Suited hands I'll call more of them, but just the offsuit they don't play as well post flop. So ace 10 suited, ace jack suited. This kind of hands I'd rather call. Ace queen suited. It might just be a call too. But the offsuit hands on the ball, and you have to then balance it with some pairs. Kind of medium strength pairs. Pairs of sevens. Eights, nines, tens, jacks, and then sometimes even queens, but kings and aces, I want to, there's something else going on, I'll in. So let's just fold. For the hijack, it's a fold, king jack suited, king six suited. It's always a raise. It's more of an advanced thing, like it's not a super strong hand, but just to have some balance on ace high boards, to have some other kinds of flushes, like a few more flushes to balance with all the king of clubs, queen of spades, all the king, queen, queen, jack, king 10 kind of hands. Let's check this out. Try to explain this to you. If you only raised, it's more for higher stakes, but if you only raised, king 10 offsuit or better, it's 12 combos, 24, 36. Of the ones that have clubs, it's about maybe a third of that 12. When there's an ace high flush available, Actually, let's just see how many combos here have. Check the combos. Maybe not. Anyway, you see here that King 3 suited is even a raise, so King 6 suited is for sure a raise. And then you can start to raise like more hands where you have some kind of lead on the players if they've been tight. If you look at this big blind, he plays 13 and 9, 13 VIP 9. What a normal range looks like is around 23 to 26 VPIP and about 18 to 20 PR. So they're too tight. You can raise a lot looser. And then you can also look at the big blind. Big blind's too tight. So if this is a normal range, this range assumes that they will only defend versus your raise. They will defend versus your raise, play back at you. 15 plus 7.6 plus 1.1, or 23.5%. But there's no way that they will. They're too tight. 6% 3-bet, 8% 3-bet, very tight calling range. So when that's the case, you can go much looser than the recommended strategy here. You can go King 2 suited, any suited queen. You don't go too crazy, but Jack 4 suited, 10-6 or 9-6, 6-4, and then all these offsuit, 9-8, all the ace-X offsuit, King 8, Queen 8. You go a little bit looser. If you don't use a HUD, then you can just use some basic stats and you get an idea of who's too tight, who's too loose, who's too passive, who's too aggressive, and you can make adjustments. So this is a kind of hand where button cutoff, hijack, lowjack, it's kind of a threshold. He's a tight guy. If he was a looser player, then I might go all in. Button cutoff. But from lowjack, you're not really thrilled. You know it's kind of like an all-in bluff. And you want to know that he folds sometimes to do this play. I think we saw it earlier, but low jack raises 2, big blind. So it's a pure call. And you want to go all in with a King 10 suited, Queen 10 suited, Jack 10 suited. And the reason is because you can generally fold out better hands. Like you can fold out King, Queen Jack offsuit, King Jack offsuit, King Queen offsuit. So, and they don't play as well. You have higher EV making calls with these hands, and like the suited hands, than these ones. That's pretty interesting. So anyway, yeah. Sometimes you could go all in. So let's check out if they're. That's for the hijack. This is for the hijack. So it's not an all in yet. Maybe versus the cutoff. It's an all in. So where's the cutoff? It's a rejam all in. So if you had someone to hijack who's way too loose, and he's raising, he's raising close to 30%. There are players that do that instead of the 21.6%. Then you can start to rejam. Ace 10 off instead. From the hijack, I think this would be too loose. Yeah, you're not quite deep enough, but if this player's really tight or really weak, then it's okay to call here, I think. Let's go to it might even be GTO, let's check it. No, it's not, so it's a little loose. But this assumes when you do call that the big blind will squeeze. 7.5% of the time, go all in 12% of the time, and call 55% of the time, only fold in 26% of the time. That just doesn't happen. They're much, much tighter. And even if they're just a little bit tighter, they fold 30% of the time, only go all in 10% of the time. It makes a big difference in your strategy. And then I think you can just it's good that I'm kind of recognizing these threshold spots, but you'll get there too with study. I think when they check twice here, they have a very high fold. So I might try to still play one at a time. They fold something like 60% of the time here. They check twice too, especially on a low card board. They just might not have any of it. If it's a high card board, they would check to you with a decent hand sometimes, just to kind of trap or, So a turn here, I would check again. Just to trap. Hope a fourth diamond comes, or, a hand that gives them a pair, and then maybe I'll bet small. First line alpha, bar, I think just fold here. Clear off, just a fold. I wonder if I'm watching this in reverse. Because pots are getting smaller. I don't know. Anyway, doesn't have to be in sequence. Yeah, this looks kind of strong. Regular position was 3x, but thick. The shallower people are, the more you can call. So let's play around here. Skip under, got a no limping range. They raise 2, and in the big blind you can call. You only fold 24% of the time. Versus a 3x, of course you gotta be tighter. Let's try to. It's not gonna translate too well because at bigger stack depths, you start to raise bigger than raise. But let's just play around. So the other one at 26%, this is 27%. Let's look at deep stacked. When you deep stack, you have more of a positional disadvantage because when you're shallow, you can get all in sooner on the flop or turn. But when you're deeper stacked, they can bluff you after seeing what you do in the flop turn, or when they decide the second what to do. They get a chance to kind of control the pot more or bluff versus you. They realize more equity, so you realize less equity. Anyway, so let's look at the big blind defend here. There's a 2.3x, you start to fold 47% of the time when you're deeper stacked. Then it's a big adjustment, but so 47%, it's about the same for 100 big blinds. A little bit less actually, it's interesting. Anyways, you can play around with those charts. Those are free charts, available online. Oh, I definitely raise this. This is like, I guess now you know how strong the king suited hands are. But this isn't even the bottom of the range. Bottom cut off hijack, low jack. You for sure raise king 6 suited as well. Maybe king 5 suited sometimes. Bottom cut off hijack, low jack. So 45 big blinds, low jack. Yeah, so king five suited is a pure open raise too. Yeah, that's good. Fold there. You see what kind of, you can call if it's suited, maybe king queen off you can call. But I think that in these stakes people, they raise a bit tight. So, how many becomes this? Let's say it's 40 because you have 40. So you raise 2.3, king 10 off's in there. Let's say, it shows a forced option with them. Anyway, yeah, you raise small blind. He raises. What can you call it? So king 10 off, sometimes it's a call, sometimes it's a fold, but I think because people are a bit too tight, I would fold. And you can call king jack, king queen. Like this guy's insanely tight, so it's a good fold. And if you knew he was tight, you'd raise here in this big play. With the queen 4 offsuit. Okay, so he's all folds. This is fold in the other position. This is going to be a raise, folds to you. So it's always worth checking. So queen 9 off, is it an open? Yes, it is on the button. Queen 8 off as well, queen 7 off sometimes. Ah, fuck. So I think we already talked about something similar. That's a raise. Raise 7 suited. Let's fold. King 9 off. From the cutoff, I know it seems a bit loose, but I'll definitely raise. It might even be GTO. King 9 off, pure raise. There's a lot of time of post-flop stuff here, it's all kind of pre-flop. Yeah, good call here. These are the random kind of spazzy hands. I'll call here, even multi-way. That's very tight to fold. I'll raise 3x here, 3.5x. 2.3 is way too small, even if they're very tight. You don't really want to change your raise size too much. It kind of makes it obvious that you think they're tight. I mean, in low stakes it doesn't matter, but I kind of mid stakes. So here 3.5x is standard kind of raise size. At this stack depth. Oh, sorry, bad break time. Let's see. It's a pretty tough spot. If he was bluffing the flop and turn, he'd have queen 10 and some flush draws. And since you have the king of clubs, ace of clubs, you block the flush draws pretty hard. So maybe it's 10-8 sometimes. But when he overshoves, I think more likely he has king jack or king 9. I think just most likely king jack. Maybe sometimes jack 9. Oh, okay. Jack 5, 2 pair anyway. I don't think that I'll call there only be bluff there too much. So I guess that's during the rebuy period. Now I guess he could have king queen as well with GP, but sorry, watch it in reverse. Alright. Those are all pretty easy fixes. I'll make a video here and send it to you.